Alrighty, folks, welcome back to Cop Idol. We are joining us for our match reaction for the opening game of the season against Bournemouth at Anfield, where the Reds have come out victors 4 goals to 2. So let's get into it. So obviously it was an emotional start to the game. With obviously the singing of "You'll Never Walk Alone," and then the minute silence for Diogo Jota, which was impeccably observed by everyone on the ground, and the mosaic display was great as well. And it's always emotional at the start of a Liverpool game. For all of us who've been to Anfield, we know that "You'll Never Walk Alone" can definitely pull at the heartstrings. So the game started off pretty strongly. Liverpool fielded a pretty strong lineup, with Arne Slot giving debuts to 4 of the new signings. So Hugo Ekitike, Frimpong, Kerkez and Florian Wirtz, all in the starting lineup. That was rounded out by Karate, Virgil van Dijk and Alisson in defence. We have McAllister, Szoboszlai in the midfield, and obviously Gakpo and Salah, the remaining members of the starting 11. Alrighty, so there was an open. The opening of the game was quite frantic, I suppose, and bombing forward. I think it was early stages. You could see that whenever Liverpool were bombing forward, that the midfield there was a massive gap there, and I know that I thought that at the start of the game. If they keep doing that, if they keep bombing forward like that, are we gonna get caught out in midfield a lot? I had that in my notes there. And then obviously about 2 minutes in, Ekitike had his first shot at goal. Very, very tame shot at that. And then a few minutes later, Salah came close with Frimpong creating the space for Salah to move into it. There was a few efforts in the opening 5 minutes, and there's some decent stuff there. Wirtz was good. He was picking up the space and stuff, and be able to play some decent passes. I thought at times Kerkez was getting caught out. I think he was being muscled by Semenyo and others there. And I have to say, he didn't look anything like he did in a Bournemouth shirt last season. I think he looked a bit of a shadow of himself, to be honest with you. And he did throw himself into some wild tackles as well. I thought Bournemouth in the opening of half were pretty solid in the midfield, and but again there was some sloppy passes, as we've seen throughout pre-season in terms of the midfield giving the ball away as well. And then we had the 20th minute tribute, which we expect to see a lot this season in regards to Diogo Jota. It was great to see that. No goal this time, but however, the other incident that then happened not that long after that, around about the 20th minute or so, there was a stoppage. Initially, didn't know what was happening. I don't think anybody seemed to know what was happening. The referee had brought both of the coaches together to mention something, and then we found out that apparently one of the Bournemouth players had been racially abused, or there was a racial slur used from someone in the crowd. And I have to say, that's out of order. Whoever that was, there is no space for that. With the amount of things that we, can complain about in terms of football and stuff, especially in regards to even, like victim chanting and all this, or tragedy chanting and stuff like that there. The last thing we need, especially at the opening game of the season, are those kind of things happen, and it's just not on. And obviously the referee has dealt with that, and I'm sure the club will deal with that effectively as well. And then once we got back into the game, there was some sloppy play out from the back, and we were getting locked down in midfield, like a lot of the games that we had last season. I think there was times when we struggled to find our way out and break teams down, and I think that was the case here. I think there was definitely times, not just in the first half, but throughout this game, that the defence looked absolutely shaky, and Bournemouth, I think had more initially up until about the 35-minute mark, had more of the clear-cut chances. But then things changed, and Ekitike scored on his debut with a brilliant assist from McAllister, putting him through, and then he had a wee bit of luck, I think, with the ball breaking for him. But what a cool finish. Absolutely stone cold finish from Ekitike, pushing the ball into the bottom right hand corner, making it 1-0 for the Reds. And, I definitely think he is going to be a handful for defences this season. Moments after, scoring that goal, he was up for another header. If he had let it drop a wee bit, he maybe would have got it on target, etc. And, yeah, I think he's showing absolute class. I think he's, it's only 2 games in terms of competitive football, but he is looking absolutely brilliant. McAllister towards the end of the half was also showing his class, tracking back, tracking players, making interceptions, etc. There was a few wee flurries from Salah, nothing I would say of real value there from him. And then the other thing is Kerkez. Kerkez sliding in too much. He is going to end up with a lot of yellow cards if he continues to play with that. So you'd like to think that Arne Slot will have a word with him. I actually thought he would have been a candidate for, sorry, a bit of a fly in front of me there, distracted me. I rude of the fly to interrupt a match report, eh? And then I thought, he could be up for being replaced at halftime, and just in light of that, in regards to that. And then there was some sloppy play again. Sabo gave away a free kick towards the end of the half. Nothing came out of that, and then there was 3 minutes added on at the end of the first half. And I suppose, the soundtrack of last season wasn't a vintage Liverpool performance, but Liverpool had the lead, and that's exactly the way the first half ended. Half-time, no changes at half-time, and Liverpool come out very much like they would have done in the second half of games last season. A lot brighter, a lot more, positive in terms of their going forward. And that paid off in the 40th minute whenever there was a second goal. There was a great move in terms of Gakpo picking up the ball in regards to an assist from Ekitike, and Gakpo slotted the ball in to that bottom right hand corner of the cup. And so there we go. First goal and assist for Hugo. And I think he's one of a few players that have done that on their Liverpool debut. But, so that was a bright start to the half, and there were some other efforts from Salah, from McAllister, and some wild efforts from Szoboszlai, etc. And one of the good things to see was Ekitike tracking back and, coming from that forward position deeper into the midfield to try and help out. Then the changes happened. 59th minute, I think, Robertson and Endo come on for Kerkez and Frimpong. Interesting that Endo then went the right back. I don't understand that decision at all. I think that left us open, and as a result of that, from that defensive nightmare, there was a goal from Bournemouth. There was sloppy midfield play, as there has been throughout the pre-season. We were caught on the break. Szoboszlai lost the ball, and then there was a great pass for Bournemouth there, and the defence were all over the place. I do not know what Konate has been smoking, but he definitely looked off the pace in regards to his defending there. It was that was poor. It was really poor. And then the pressure was on. I think Bournemouth really started to press. I think they really did believe that they could get something from the game. And I remember sitting thinking at this point, Liverpool are going to need a third if we're going to do anything about this. There was one kind of, bright moment in there. There was a pass from Alisson to Salah, something akin to what we had seen in that famous pass in the Manchester United match, but it didn't come to anything. There was no end product there. Great pass, but no end product. And then it was end-to-end stuff for a bit, and with no real quality being shown. And in the 70th minute, Liverpool were completely on the back foot. They were being hemmed into their own box, and it was just it was just really, defending at all costs. Some of that was just desperate defending as well. And then there was some more substitutions. Hugo went off in the 71st minute, so did McAllister, and Gomez and Jones came on. Gomez, great to see Joe Gomez back in a Liverpool shirt. It's been absolutely he's had a horrible time with injuries, but that brought some balance back to the team with Gomez going to right back, and then Endo was able to switch from there into midfield. As I say, I was hoping that would give us a wee bit more balance. It didn't work out quite that way straight away because Liverpool then conceded. And I think the other thing that those substitutions showed us why we need Isak, why we need another number 9 in the squad. Because at one point I think it looked like a Szoboszlai was playing in the middle of the front three. And, so I think for me, while it's, some people may be querying, well, why would you spend that money on Hugo Ekitike and bring in Isak, sorry. That's why, because we need the strength and depth right across the board. So if we do need to make changes like this, that we have the quality on the bench to be able to do that. So Semenyo scores again. Another break, and they just cut through the Liverpool midfield. There was like 7 or 8 players left hanging, and they just cut through, and Semenyo was able to put the ball in the net for 2-2. Alrighty, so it was a bit crazy, and then as we moved into the final 10 minutes, there was some nice play, and you could see Liverpool trying to press a lot and trying to get some more things going. And then it seemed to be, things just weren't working out. It just didn't seem quite right. Looked like they were out of ideas, and anything going forward was just missing the target, the long ball, etc. And it just wasn't happening. Obviously then Chiesa was brought on, and for Wirtz, and I love to see that. I have to say, I love to see Chiesa coming on. I love the guy. I think it's great that he stayed. And then obviously there was a bit of ping pong going on, or pinball going on in the box, and the ball broke to Chiesa, and he hit a lovely shot on the outside of the boot into the right hand corner, and Anfield went absolutely mental. And one of the commentators, Jimmy Carragher, was saying, probably more famous for his song than his goals. But I tell you what, that is one that he will savor in terms of scoring there. And, there was but that didn't stop Bournemouth. Bournemouth still kept coming forward. It was a bit of a roller coaster of a game. And then obviously, 6 minutes added on, and you could see potentially maybe Bournemouth could have scored an equaliser, but whenever Liverpool needed to really try and control the game, and then Salah. Imagine Salah scoring on the opening game of the season. I think that's 9 in a row now, so that's a record for Salah. He has the most goals scored in an opening, or the most time scoring in an opening game of the season. So absolutely brilliant. And with 4-2, that was it over. You would know it was 3 points in the bag for the Reds, and 5 goals in the second half. You think, 1-0 half time, and then 4-2 at the end of that there. And I suppose if we were thinking of a cop idol or the man of the match for this one, I think you have to give it to Hugo Ekitike for a goal, well taken goal, and also the assist for Cody Gakpo. And then at the end of the match, obviously there was, a tribute again to Diogo Jota, obviously unofficial in that sense, and that the fans started to sing his song. And I think that was also a nice touch from Salah whenever he scored, that he did one of Diogo Jota's celebrations, and then you could see that Salah was physically moved at the end of the game. I think it was a great touch that he stood facing the supporters at the Kop, clapping along with them as they sang Diogo's song. And you could see that he was moved to tears in regards to his memories of his teammate and friend Diogo Jota. He was obviously very emotional and left the pitch in tears and so on. So, but and a fitting end, I suppose, to what was an emotional night for everyone, in terms of that. Also the game, the turnaround and getting a 4-2 win. And then obviously paying a tribute to Diogo at the end of that. But what does that tell us? What does that leave us with in regards to just summing this up? So this is a work in progress, and I think there is going to take some time. It is going to take some time for new players to gel. One of my concerns, and I'm sure it's been a concern of others, is that it was, lots of players coming in, probably upset the equilibrium of the squad, the flow and the balance of the squad and stuff like that there. And also the fact that Wirtz being in the team means that you've got to change your system around a bit in regards to that. And also the fact that Gravenberch was not in the team tonight. Obviously he was suspended. So I think whenever he comes back in, that will help us balance things out. But I think for me, there's a few things to take away from that. Liverpool going forward, Liverpool's attacking prowess is without question. All right. We have some of the best attacking talent in the league, if not the world. However, with all of that bombing forward, it does leave, massive gaps behind them. And if they don't clean up those kind of gaps, or the defense get caught out the way that it did tonight, we're going to see more games like this. We're going to see the team concede more goals like that. And I think that's something that obviously Arne Slot will try and address, because other teams of higher quality will exploit that considerably. So yeah, I think it's great to get 3 points on the board. Always good to win your first game of the season, especially on the back of being title winners. But also there are things to fix there in regards to how the team was playing. But all in all, folks, I'm sure we're all happy that the Reds have got 3 points in the bag, 4 goals. Goals for Salah, goals for Hugo Ekitike, goals for Chiesa. Absolutely delighted to see Chiesa scoring. And obviously Cody Gakpo as well. So again, the spreading of the goals there too. So absolutely brilliant. So not a vintage performance, but at least it's a win and 3 points. So until the next time, folks, look after yourselves, and remember, with the Reds, you never walk alone.